It's time for news from around the world in Meanwhile In. Meanwhile in Canada, yep, we're talking about it. The anti-vaxx, anti-mandate trucker protests are getting more exciting for all of the wrong reasons. So let's catch up a little bit. Protest began with the trucking industry, but has expanded rapidly as it's been embraced by right-wing figures in the US and Canada, and actually outside of our hemisphere as well. People associated with the protests have occupied a portion of downtown Ottawa for days. Protesters continue disrupting everyday life by blocking traffic, assaulting people, sounding horns, and lighting fireworks all hours of the day or night. There have actually been multiple reports of sound levels at 100 decibels or higher. There's this $10 million class action lawsuit over the noise. That said, before we get into the bad extra stuff, Francesca, I mean, in general, like, protests are not necessarily supposed to make life super easy for people around. That should not be a requirement that we generally expect. That said, if thousands of trucks go all throughout a downtown area, making it impossible to move and honking their horns in the middle of the night, you can do it. That's still, it's a little bit annoying sometimes.
No, I think that the thing I'm having trouble with in terms of this story is that I think it's a pretty devoid of the politics. It's a pretty dope action when it comes to like getting trucks to stop traffic. It happens all across the world. That is, street blockades, road blockades are a major way of demonstration. So I don't want to get and pile on, I think, some of the language that Justin Trudeau has been using, which is it is not okay to make noise and to block traffic. It's like, no, that is actually part of demonstration. And I know we're gonna get to some of the non-violent parts, but largely it's been non-violent, even though I vehemently disagree with the leaders of this movement and what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, like, I want more actual protest or whatever. And to the extent that it can actually be grassroots, that would be great, because for the most part, when the right has a big movement like this, you find out that literally millions of dollars have flowed from the richest people in America to put it together. But I'm fine with that. I would just say, like, the fact that it's the truckers, like, I get why they're doing that. First of all, I get the truckers are free to do it if they want, but like that, it's been so shallowly like picked up by US right wingers. Like, I get it. You like the image of a trucker in the same way that you like the image of a coal miner. Word to these truckers, go on strike and see how many of these right wingers are gonna be supporting you, how much positive attention you're gonna get from Breitbart and Fox News. Actually try to improve the material quality of your life by organizing together, and we'll see how much the right wing actually cares about what you're doing. I'm guessing not at all, because they've been ignoring those mine protesters for like a solid year now. Anyway, with that said, while the vast majority of it has been nonviolent, if annoying, there are some worrying signs. Residents of one apartment building clashed with protesters over the weekend. In the early hours of Sunday morning, two men reportedly tried to get back at them by trapping them inside and setting the building on fire. Now, I will say, before I give you more details, these are allegations that are being made. We do not know for sure that they are true. That said, Matthias Munoz had this Twitter thread that said, "I've been hesitating to post this publicly, but I feel I must for the safety of downtown Ottawa residents. Here are the facts. Last night, two arsonists brought a full package of fire starter bricks into our building's lobby at 5 a.m. Shows in the next tweet, you can see footage of the individuals. Apparently, a Good Samaritan walking past reportedly noticed the fire and stopped it. They extinguished it. So doors had been taped to keep people from putting out the fire. It was like, this is obviously attempted mass murder, effectively. Whoever it is, they're saying that it's the protesters. Apparently, those people said that they were protesters. That said, Francesca, when it's this high profile of an event, until things are proven, I don't just take as a given that the presented story is necessarily true, but this is worrying, regardless of who it is.
Yeah, I know. I read the whole story and I was really frightened by the taping of the doors shut so that the fire could be contained and the damage could be done. I'm also happy that the tape didn't work and the Good Samaritan was able to get in eventually and force their way in and actually do something about it. But this again is like, I'm sorry. This is par for the course when it comes to far right, protests, whether they be anti-mask, anti-vax, QAnon, or Trumper movements. Like, this is what has been happening. And I gotta say, I know we have to move on to a next story, but what I've been feeling when I'm looking at this like trucker story that's gotten so much traction, all these people are around, and despite the violent elements, they're still being lifted up in the media and lifted up, and not necessarily by right-wing media, and talked about is, my God, when are the people who've been on the side of science, who've been on the side of keeping other people safe, gonna get mad? I'm mad as hell. And I'm like, when are we actually gonna organize and take the streets? Because we've been doing the work that either governments and especially anti-vaxxers and extremists have not been doing. We should be the ones blockading roads. Like, and yet we don't, because we're kind of like, well, we don't want to make things even worse, right?
Yeah, that is unfortunately true. Yeah, and the final two things I'll say before we move on. One, people are saying they're not allegations, it's on video. No, I'm not saying that whether it happened or not is an allegation. I'm saying the identity of the people who did it is alleged. That has not been proven, at least as far as I have seen. The other comment is, by the way, to circle back to our thing where we want to see more protests. Yes, we do, and you're free to. We're also free to evaluate the worth of your protest. Like, yeah, you can protest about whatever. I don't know. You guys were mocking like, the social justice protest to stop cops from like wildly killing people. You're protesting to not have to get a shot. So we can identify that. You're free to do it, but we can identify it. Meanwhile, in the metaverse, you might have heard recently on Meanwhile In that they've got a bit of a virtual groping problem, but don't worry, Facebook has fixed it. They're rolling out a new default personal boundary that, quote, prevents avatars from coming within a set distance of each other, creating more personal space for people and making it easier to avoid unwanted interactions. Yes, a new bubble of safety will make it easier to avoid unwanted interactions. Another way to do that is to not be on Facebook or any of their products. But anyway, here you can see this like cylinder of "you can't grope me" that they've rolled out. So that ought to fix it, right, Francesca?
As Betsy DeVos would say, the problem is not the gropers. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't. I'm trying to think about like what. This is so obvious, right? Like they should have done this from the beginning. It was so obvious, especially people on the internet are unaccountable for what they do. They're discussing, and yeah, there's like a lot of like young teens or people who have the mindset of young boys. And so, good. I'm glad they rolled out this thing. I don't.
It's something. Although I can already start to see problems with it. It's because they continue. Meta, which I will call Facebook, says two users will be able to jointly reach outside their personal boundary for interactions like a high five or a fist bump. I feel like they're gonna figure out a way to grope each other still. I feel like that is coming so soon. By the way, look, this is just gonna be a problem. When you put humans into a system, they will make the system awful because they're awful. But that said, don't rush to use any of these services. Think about what is already capable of being done to ruin your day and your emotional state on Facebook. Like when it's just text, when they're actually like in your face, how many random people do? I'm not saying there will be great things that'll be done in these, but maybe give it a little bit of time. That's all I'm saying.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.